So what is merger, right? First thing is whether merger, acquisition, takeover. There's another word of takeover. Then there is something somebody said, a SIC unit. Very good. A SIC unit being merged is also a very good benefit, no doubt about it. But please understand when we say merger in a strategic sense, again, this definition varies from person to person. I think the easiest way to use this definition is in a merger, at least one entity loses its identity. So Cheryl beta, if X plus Y gives you X, that means Y goes into X. That's a merger. Acquisition, please note, both the entities will survive. Acquisition basically means one acquiring stake in the another, or it could be one acquiring brands of another, or it could be one acquiring intangible assets of the other firm. So acquisition, when you say acquisition as a word stands for acquiring. Acquiring what? Tangible assets or intangible assets. When you say hostility, the key words, my kids, are, the key word is takeover. So whenever you say hostile acquisition, the word that we use is takeover. See, you don't want to sell? No problem. I will buy. That is takeover. So once again, let's revisit this. This is all very loosely defined, but please understand, you may read different textbooks, different answers will come out. But for me, merger is one entity survives. That means at least one entity loses its identity. At least one loses its identity. Acquisition is you survive, I'll acquire stake in your company, minority stake or majority stake. Or do me a small favor, you sell those brands to me. That is also acquisition. Acquisition means you survive, I have no problems. But you, those brands there, you sell it to me. For example, Madura Coats was a very big brand. The Aditya Birla Group acquired the brand. So you revive, you remain. Right? Another good example is the brand of Thumbs Up, Gold Spot. So Mr. Chavan sold those brands to Coke. The company survived. And then of course, you know, they went into something even more better. They went into bottled water, Bisleri. Now when you say takeover, it becomes very interesting, Sheetal and others. Takeover basically means you don't want to sell, but I will acquire. That's it. So if you're a listed company, there are very big chances of takeover. That's why many companies don't want to get listed. Very good example, Shanmuga. Very good example. HUL acquiring Indulekha from Masons Group. Fantastic. Absolutely very good example of acquisition. Salute. Absolutely right. That's a perfect example of acquisition of a brand. Full marks to you, son. Coming back to takeover, you don't want to sell, but I will acquire. How? Your shares are there in the market. No, I will buy the shares and I'll push you out. So that's the reason why many companies don't want to get listed, because they know they can be subjected to hostile takeover. L&T acquiring Mindtree is a classic example of hostile takeover. Absolutely right. Now you kids are speaking. And it looks like we are into the placement season. Absolutely right. So Mindtree, what a class. Superb. What a class. Mindtree, promoters did not want to sell. But one of the main investors, Cafe Coffee Day, I don't want to name the gentleman, he's no longer with us. But he did not show any sympathy for the promoters. Normally you should show sympathy, not everything is money. But Cafe Coffee Day, he had his own compulsion, so let's not go there. So he went to L&T and said, buy the shares. L&T purchased those shares from Cafe Coffee Day. And then L&T said, I'm taking over the company. The promoters had hardly 15-17% stake. Remaining was there in the market. L&T acquired it, and today, superb example. Mindtree is a classic. They say that it's a division of L&T, but it's all known that entire management is taken over. L&T will finally merge it. They say that it is a separate thing and all that, but ऐसा नहीं होने वाला. Let's get this very clear. Ultimately, it's going to be pulled inside. One entity will go. Today they are keeping it separate because they want clients to know. Facebook, WhatsApp also, but Facebook, WhatsApp, I would say, is a very good case of a friendly merger. Eventually, WhatsApp will have to get merged into Facebook. I don't know if the name WhatsApp will survive as a separate company. Brand may survive. So what exactly is mergers, acquisitions, and takeovers? Let's look at that. So we just understood what it is exactly. So what does merger mean? As I said, one company will either company A plus company B will become company C. Listen to me carefully, please. Or company A plus company B will become company A. The bigger entity will survive. That is called as straight merger. That is called as straight merger. The bigger entity is swallowing the smaller entity. Sometimes, most of it is straight merger. It's obvious that the bigger entity will always survive. Sometimes you may have a case where the smaller entity will survive. We will call it reverse merger. We will call it reverse merger. B acquiring A, the smaller entity. Now we'll say, how can you think like that, Manan sir? How can a smaller entity? But size does not matter. For example, Tata Steel was much smaller in size than Chorus. But Tata Steel was more profitable than Chorus. So when Tata Steel and Chorus merged, Chorus died, Tata Steel survived. Chorus went into Tata Steel. That is an example of a reverse merger. Now you'll say, sir, can you give me one from the financial industry? Of course, bete. ICICI Bank, smaller entity. ICICI, much bigger entity. ICICI Bank swallowed ICICI. Reverse merger. Now you'll say, sir, why would ICICI Bank take over the bigger entity? Because everybody knows the future belongs to banking. Nobody wants to have a financial institution. Those days it made sense, right? Giving infra loans. Nowadays it doesn't matter. Even banks can give infra loans. So earlier banks could give only working capital loans. If you wanted infrastructure loans, go to an institution. Now the markets are expecting a reverse merger of HDFC Bank and HDFC. But Deepak Parekh is right. He says, forget it. HDFC is very good, stable, and housing, there's still big penetration left in India. So that may not happen. So one, you may have straight merger. Second, you may have reverse merger. Or third, like this one, company A, company B, company C. But it is called as conglomerate. Altogether new entity is formed. Now what was my definition? At least one entity loses its identity. At least one. Here both will lose. Simple. Now what is the benefit of this? It's obvious. Larger market share. So number 2 and number 3 combined and become number 1. Vodafone Idea combined and became number 1. But very soon, because they didn't keep investing, they have slipped. Now they are number 3 again. But when they combined, Vodafone and Idea, when they combined, they became number 1. But then they didn't invest like Airtel and Jio. I'm giving an example which we have discussed. And today they have slipped to number 3. Obviously, the plant capacity can increase. You have 20 metric tons. I think I'll give you a very good example. Ultratech acquisition of ACC. You have 20 metric tons. I have 30 metric tons. Together we'll have 50 metric tons. So then what happens is you can negotiate well with your raw material suppliers. Because now you're not ordering for 20 metric tons. You're not ordering for 30 metric tons. You're ordering for 50 metric tons. Again, one thing that happens is this is called as economies of scale. Again, you can have job rationalization. Why do you have 10 salesmen here? You are 10, my 5, 15 going to the same territory. 10 plus 5, 15 going to the same territory. Let's do one thing. Let's remove 5 people. Let's have 10 people from both sides. Sun Pharma, Ranbaxy. Now please understand, now all this leads to confusion. So very easy for us to say this. So Ranbaxy was a classic case where the Singh brothers sold it to Abbott. They actually sold a lemon. They hid a lot of things from the Japanese company known as Abbott. They hid a lot of information and sold a lemon. And once the Japanese management took over by paying rupees, they realized a lot of problems. And then finally they fought a case with the Singh brothers and they won. And finally, when they won, they decided enough of India. And that company, you see, managing culture is very difficult, you know. They decided to sell Ranbaxy to Singh brothers. They sell Ranbaxy to Sun Pharma. I'm sorry, Sun Pharma. They sold it to Sun Pharma. Now, I've got a question for all of you here. And then they took their yen and went back. You see, actually in this entire transaction, Abbott made money. How? So they purchased a lemon, sold it at a low price. And then again, they went back, they made money. How come? Any guesses? Absolutely right, Mohit. Fantastic. Mohit, absolutely right. So please understand, the Japanese Prime Minister had depreciated the yen repeatedly because he wanted, and he's resigned today. I think today he's gone and the new guy has come in. Wonderful Prime Minister. Good, did his job, longest serving in Japan. And Japanese people are very down to earth, you know. They take their own time making friends, but once they make friends, my God, they're friends for life, unlike Chinese. Chinese guys, you know, they're very slippery. You never know if they are your friend. Italian, even more bad. You know, Germans, extremely to the point. And again, if you know German language, then to you are, you know, then to your God. So this Japanese Prime Minister, Abe, that's why we call it as Abenomics, wanted Japan to export, like Mohit observed here. So he kept on depreciating the yen. Now Abbott gained in that because when Abbott came in, they would have converted the yen into rupees. And by the time this entire nonsense played out, yen had depreciated. Then they converted that rupees to yen and got more yen and walked away. So actually, if you look at it, though in the deal, Abbott, I'm so happy, right? Though in the deal, Abbott lost money, overall they gained because of yen depreciation. Because of yen depreciation, very good. Good to see you kids are really getting prepared for your placements. Here is a point from Kritika Iyer who said, Centurion Bank merged with HDFC Bank, absolutely right. And earlier to that, Lord Krishna Bank itself was taken over by Centurion Bank, absolutely right. So Lord Krishna Bank was taken over by Centurion Bank, then Centurion Bank into HDFC Bank. Kritika Iyer, absolutely right. These are all examples of straight mergers. They are examples of straight mergers. Back to our topic here. Now, this is where there was a big problem with Infosys. So Infosys, under the leadership of Mr. Sikka, went very aggressive, not hostile, very aggressive in acquisitions and mergers. So they acquired an Israeli firm for research and development. And that was not liked up by Narayana Murthy because it is rumored that that Israeli firm was actually a friend of Mr. Sikka. Now, Mr. Sikka says, so what? If it is my friend, I have done arm's length due diligence. I've kept it at arm's length. But Mr. Narayana Murthy suspected something in that. And once he suspects something, he goes after everybody. So though he is a minority shareholder, he went to the press and said, you know, this was not discussed in the board. And of course, the press hyped it up and, you know what happened subsequently. Similarly, another M&A failure which happened, a very good point, right, was they wanted a reduction of financial risk. But actually what happened in this merger was there was an increase in financial risk. For example, this entire deal of Tata Steel and Chorus, Cyrus Mistry says that, you know, the Tata's position has actually become weaker. So though it was about reduction of financial risk, Cyrus Mistry immediately came back and said, you know, this is going to be a big problem. And of course, then the boardroom battle started, and then what happened subsequently. So so please understand, I always said this, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what is that synergy with respect to M&A? One, economies of scale. So what is economies of scale? It is reduction of fixed cost per unit. It is reduction of fixed cost per unit. Earlier, I used to produce my fixed cost for 1 lakh. I used to produce 10,000 units. So 1 lakh divided by 10,000, that is 10 rupees per unit. Now that 1 lakh is my fixed expenses, but I can produce, assuming 1 lakh units. My fixed cost has come down to 1 rupee per unit. So that was the major strategy of a lot of acquisitions that happened. Economies of scale, economies of scope. Now, when you say scope, it's more of a marketing thing. Scale is more of a production thing. So scale is production, scope is marketing. Staff reductions, we had discussed. So you see, when you say staff reductions, colleagues, moment M&A happens, there is a cultural shock that happens. Will we have the job? Will they ask us to go? You can acquire new technology. That's where the Infosys Israel example came in. Improved market reach and industry visibility. Suddenly you become number one, But then you see, it's very easy to become number one, but very difficult to stay there. So Vodafone Idea became number one, but very difficult to stay there. There was an onslaught. Taxation, that becomes another critical point. If you take over a sick unit and that sick unit has losses, the profitable unit can absorb those losses. So this is where it becomes extremely important. So my entire thing in SBI Caps, when we were in charge of financial restructuring, the first thing the promoter would come back and say is, can you tell me an example in your distress asset sell, any good companies which are in the same line of business? Distress asset sell. So I'm a steel manufacturer. In your distress asset sell, can you get me a sick steel company? What happens when you have a sick steel company? You integrate, you do economies of scale, staff reduction. This is all called as synergy, synchronized energy. Synergy stands for synchronized energy. And then one more thing that happens is, hey, what's your loss? Your loss is 100 crores. My profit is 250 crores. Now your taxable profit is 250 minus 100, 150 crores. Your taxable profit is now no longer 250. 250 minus 100. That is 150 crores. That is one benefit. Then you have another benefit which is called as carry forward of depreciation. So that sick unit will have losses, so they would not have taken the depreciation benefit. I hope you remember the earlier class where I talked about depreciation as a cash tax shield. That you can carry forward over a period of time. And that carry forward is from the date of merger. That's the beauty of it. It's from the date of merger. So now what are the types of merger? Very simple: horizontal merger, vertical merger, conglomerate, completely different, or concentrate. Horizontal is, as we discussed, Abbott and Ranbaxy, both in the same line of business. Horizontal, right? X and Y in the same line of business. Vertical means either up or down, upstream or downstream. So when you say vertical merger, either it is forward integration or backward integration. When you say vertical merger, either you go ahead and acquire your customer or you go and acquire your supplier. So, but before that, let me just give you some examples of horizontal merger. I'm sure you kids also would love to add something more. Lipton India, Brook Bond, same line of business. My kid mentioned that Centurion Bank, HDFC, fantastic. That's also horizontal. Bank of Madura with ICICI Bank. This is Madurai, yeah? Bank of Madurai with ICICI Bank. I told you this Associated Cement, Cement, power companies, same line of business. Vertical is you are moving up or down. For example, Tea Estate Limited with Brook Bond is you are going back. Or you can have Times Warner. They went and acquired Turner Corporation. So you're more or less in the same line of business. And trust me, either horizontal or vertical actually succeeds. Now, the third one, according to me, it's a very dangerous thing that you're getting into. You're getting into a very dangerous territory. But then people do it. So actually, if you ask me, there is a McKinsey principle or Harvard, which is very well chronicled by Harvard, which is known as principle of core competence. What is principle of core competence? Do what you think is right and continue doing that only. Do what you think is right and continue doing that. Don't go here and there, So if you're good in, let's say, Tata's, if you see diversified group, so a lot of Indian family managed business actually do not follow the principle of core competence. Do not follow. But what core competence is saying is, boss, what are you? You are extremely good in automobiles. Stick to automobiles. There you go backward, forward. That is your choice. But stick to automobiles. This is where the entire thing is going to be a failure. But before I talk about conglomerate is you are acquiring firms in which there's nothing in common. Now, before I do that, I would like to ask some questions to you all. I will just stop share. Right? Why do you think in India you have so many well-diversified groups? Why? Growth opportunities. That's a fantastic one from Yash Jain. People follow brand. Rucha Nayak, extremely good. Tested and trusted Tatas for growth and expansion. Okay, colleagues, this is all very, very good answers. Leander, very good. Rucha, very good. Right? Shanmuga, okay. Diversification, very good. I like the part of reducing volatility. Okay. See, but these are all the, yeah, very good, Prajwal, very good. Hedging risk, right? So you are reducing risk, okay? I would possibly take Rudesh's command also to reduce risk, okay? See, this is all the fall effects of, license Raj. So in India, we had something which is called as a license Raj. Where anybody could go to the government and the government will decide what he wants to do. So in India, actually this theory of, reducing risk, diversification, actually it is not working. What is actually you need to understand, if somebody asks you this question, please tell them. It is all about a era of license Raj, which has continued over a period of time. And I'm so happy with that comment, trusted, tested brand. But today, if you ask me, we tend to follow, at least the bigger companies tend to follow core competency, which is why the new guy in Tata, he came in and Mr. Chandrasekhar had said, why are we in telecom? We would rather be at number 6, number 7, we'd rather exit. GE, so when Jack Welch took over GE, he was extremely clear. GE was very well diversified. There, all these rules apply. No license Raj, all these rules apply. But he came in and said, why do you want to get into so many things? So GE will exit wherever we are not among the top 3. GE will exit wherever we are not among the top 3, period. That's all. So even in India, the Aditya Birla Group has said that clearly, we want to be focused. Okay, earlier because of license Raj, we got into everything, but wherever we can't, we will sell. That money we'll put into our area of core competency. Simple. Now, if you get this context right, today there are a lot of businesses which are focused on core competency, and yes, they will look around and say, hey, this is too, concentration risk is very high. The sector can go down. And then to hedge their risk, they can do what is called as conglomerate merger. I think it is good? I don't think so. It looks good on paper. But please understand, unless you get good professionals to manage, conglomerate merger is not a good idea. If you ask me simply, it is not a good idea at all. Unless you have good professionals to manage. I may be excellent in manufacturing steel. Now, some of you will say it is very good to steel is cyclical. Then I say, give me an industry which is not cyclical. And suddenly you'll come back and say an industry which is not cyclical, pharmaceuticals. And then I get into pharmaceuticals. See, unless I get the right professionals, I'll be a total disaster. If I get a good professional, I can run it as a separate unit, good. Conglomerate, Kingfisher Airlines. Sorry, but I think one of the best businessmen that we got in India, Vijay Mallya. So he inherited a company. Yeah, it's a fact. Huh? Please, he inherited a company from Vittal Mallya, who he grew like anything, and then he made a mistake of getting into a conglomerate. I would not say merger, expansion, conglomerate expansion. He went into airlines. It was a business call. He thought people will pay a premium. But you know, Indians, we are very price conscious. Maybe in spirits, we may like to pay a premium, but travel, I'm not sure. You want to go end to end. He should have advertised this as, boss, time to time, I will get you on the place at the least cost. End of the matter. I'll give you the best cuisine and all that. Maybe it will work when I'm on a vacation, but I'm going on work, damn it. Your flights are 2 hours late. So that's an example of conglomerate expansion. Now, once he got there, Kingfisher, we compounded that problem by acquiring Air Deccan to kill competition. And that was a leverage deal. So he took debt to acquire Air Deccan. So already a weak strategy, compounded that by a bigger weak thing, tabak, the entire thing just collapsed. Conglomerate is extremely risky, colleagues. So if it's a game of high risk, high return. You get it right, you may do extremely well. You get it wrong, you will sink. 90% of the time, you get it wrong. I'm very clear about that. Concentric. Concentric is an addition, actually. Similar type of business, not exactly same, similar. Okay. So a similar sort of business, if you ask me, it's a very good example. I just picked this up extra, right? Just as an example. Some of you will argue with me, sir, this will go into vertical or horizontal. But as I said, income tax has only one definition, amalgamation. So, you know, was strategy-wise, you break it up. So concentric, since some textbooks mentioned that, and ma'am wanted me to take this from an exam point of view, I've just picked it up, concentric merger. If you ask me personally, horizontal, vertical, and conglomerate. Straight, reverse is also one more definition. So yes, this is one more example, right, of concentric, more or less similar, not exactly the same line of business, allied. So you'll find some commonality. You'll find some commonality. I've given you one example. Now, please also understand one thing which is very, very important. Now, let me just put this up. Now, after liberalization, you had a host of acquisitions by Indian companies who went abroad and kept acquiring. Top on the list is Tata Steel. This is, I've not put the entire thing. I know you know about Jaguar also. Now, just shot up like anything. It just shot up like anything, which is where I'll take a pause here. The merger is happening because, or the acquisition is happening because, or the takeover is happening because the top guy feels, you know, he wants to be Alexander the Great. AOL Times Warner is a classic example. He wants to be Alexander the Great. There's a cultural mismatch. There's a lack of communication. See, first of all, when this M&A comes in, people are scared. On top of that, you know, suddenly the culture changes. Now you'll be shocked. Within State Bank of India, the different SBT, take a project. Of course, it is COVID time, but do it. SBT, SBM, go and talk to them. State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur. You see, all these banks come from princely states. So it was State Bank of Travancore. It's from a princely state. State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur. It's a princely state. It got nationalized. And then it was given the name State Bank. Now, for us, what? It is all State Bank. They got merged into State Bank. Do you realize there's a big cultural mismatch? An SBT guy never felt in place with SBI. And by the way, please understand, when they joined SBI, they were very happy because SBI pay scales were higher than SBT. So there was no resistance from union also. In fact, everybody was happy to become a part of SBI. But once they went there, they realized boss culture mein match nahi ho raha. And that is SBI group. Huh? Now think, when an SBI takes over an S Bank, what will happen? But very clearly it is now said S Bank will be a separate entity. SBI is invested, but it will not get merged into SBI. I think this line is extremely important. No, hubris. Hubris is ego. So many a times CEO behaves like Alexander the Great. And then he goes and acquires. And then that synergy becomes energy. Tata Steel acquiring Chorus. A smaller entity buying out a bigger entity, profitable, but uske baad wo profit chala gaya. Because Chorus could not be integrated well into Tata Steel. And Tata Steel had taken a huge loan to buy out Chorus. If TCS would not have been there, Tata Group would have been in major trouble. But TCS bailed them out. TCS is their cash cow. That is why Tata Motors, Tata Steel are still surviving. So you need a cash cow. So 3 reasons why M&A fail. 1, culture. 2, hubris. 3, lack of communication. 4, lack of human integration. Right. Cisco, the way it does it is, it takes a minority stake. Now, what do you mean by minority stake? 10%, anything less than 24%, you don't get any rights. So they take a minority stake, 5%, 10%, see the working. Then slowly they increase that minority stake to a strategic stake, about 25%. So to pass a special resolution, you need 75% of people present and voting, 75%. So if you go up to 26, you can block somebody's special resolution. So now it is no longer a minority stake, it becomes a strategic stake. You can also call it controlling. Then from 26, they go to 51, majority stake. So minority, strategic controlling, then majority stake, 51%. Then everything goes well. They acquire 100% and then merge it into the entity. Cisco is a classic example how they actually deal with M&As. The entire thing is top management. They'll come back and say, boss, if it's not working out, forget it. Minority stake, let's leave it. Let's let it be an investment. It's a great company. We are doing very well. Chalo, let's go to a bit more of controlling stake. It's doing well. Chalo, let's get it into a majority stake. 51%, you can always bring their results into your numbers. You are a majority shareholder. It's doing very, very well. Now let's merge it. Culture is matched. Merge. Let's go. So it's a long drawn affair. It's known as, if you want to read a case study, this case study is Cisco's case study. Having said that, dear colleagues, I want to end this entire wonderful interaction, God bless you all, with a takeover. And I think you all did it so very well. Mindtree is a classic case of a takeover. The promoters don't want to sell, but you are acquiring it. It happens in the case of listed entities. It can also happen in unlisted entities. I want to give you some examples here. It's so, money is so important in life. People get it wrong. So this guy who is the BCCI head at one point of time, Mr. Srinivasan, the head of India Cements. He's known for a lot of hostile takeovers, and he has done some takeovers of unlisted companies also, which is a wonderful example. So listed companies, if the promoters don't have majority stake, if they have only 20% stake, balance 80 is in the market, finished. So that 80 anybody can acquire, and what you can do is you follow the takeover guidelines, SEBI guidelines. SEBI is not saying don't do it. SEBI says you do it, but give the right price to all the shareholders. So if you are listed and you have only 25% stake or 20% stake, balance 80% is the market, you can just come and acquire yourself. That's why even Reliance Industries, if you see, 51% stake is held by the Ambanis. Tomorrow some giant comes in and the government also agrees, his company also can be taken away. 51% is holding, please understand. If you see all the Tata companies earlier, they used to manage with 10, 15, 12%. Now they also have gone to 26% minimum. In the case of TCS, they hold still substantial stake. That's their cash cow. Now, can you think of an example where you can take over an unlisted company? It's hostile. Now, in the case of India Cements, it's so very sad. I'm ending today's session with a very wrong example. There was this guy who got his daughter married. And out of love for the daughter, he gave a substantial part of his stake to his son-in-law, unlisted company. And guess what? Without the father-in-law realizing, the son-in-law went behind the back, went to Srinivasan, the India Cements head. That guy offered him a very good price, sold out, and moved out. The father-in-law died heartbroken. Is it good? I don't know. Financially, it makes a lot of sense. Ethically, it's a company somebody else has built. You got it because you got married into that family. Maybe he or his wife, whoever, and then you compelled that lady to sell. Or you sold. I should not say anything beyond that. If you now read about India Cements Srinivasan, you will understand what is it that he is battling now within his family. I don't want to digress beyond my topic. His own son has gone against him. You should read about that. I think it's the power of karma. So if anybody is wondering why is Srinivasan's son against Mr. Srinivasan, it's all karma. Go back and see, type India Cements takeovers, and suddenly you'll see, my God, right? So many examples will come in. Where this is you're talking to somebody and that somebody is now selling family silver without letting the family know. It's completely unethical. You're right, Ria. Completely unethical, and especially if you are not built it. But yes, I remember that example because takeovers of unlisted companies very difficult unless the shareholders themselves come and say take it. Listed companies, yes, you are open for threat. Having said that, all this in income tax is clearly said as amalgamation. They don't get into too many of definitions here. They say anything that you do is financial restructuring, amalgamation. We have got our rules to apply. Simple. Whether merger, acquisition, whatever, we have our rules to apply. Some movies you can watch, which is so very good, which is called as Wall Street, is a great movie to watch. Wall Street 1, even 2 is good. Barbarians at the Gate is a classic movie you should watch. Barbarians at the Gate is a classic movie you should watch about hostile takeovers. So in US, you have something which is called as asset stripping. So if you look at this entire thing, what they do is very simple. So there was this movie Wall Street where you had a gentleman, Michael Douglas, playing the role of Gecko. Actually, Gecko is there's actually a person by that name, right? Michael Milken is his name. What this guy is to do is, and I'm going to end this class with a case study. I'll take 5 more minutes, please. So Michael Milken came in and, he used to float junk bonds. Now, what is junk bonds is? These are bonds. I know you have gone through these courses, right? They will be paying interest at very high risk. That's why junk, very low rating. So he'll float junk bonds and he'll say, boss, I'm using this money to take over another company there. If the takeover is successful, you get huge returns. If it is not, you may lose your principal. Okay, that's your call. Michael Milken is to get most of it right. Absolutely right. He is to collect the money from junk bonds, take over, go after the company. And once he takes over the company, is to do what is asset stripping. So this is a pen. It costs you 25 rupees. He will take over this pen, strip, sell this at 8 rupees, break, sell the entire thing at 30 rupees. 5 rupees is his profit. He'll take it, go and give some money to the junk bond investors. And that's it. It's called as asset stripping, not allowed in India. You can also, some people also call it vulture funds. They'll come and shred you out. Not allowed in India because it leads to unemployment, but US it is allowed. And there's a classic line, which is there in the movie where this guy says, somebody says, boss, you're taking over the airline, you're going to shut it down. And people are going to lose jobs. Why are you so greedy? Why? Because I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to get into efficiency in the economy. People will be more efficient. They will get scared. I do not know. I personally think that, greed is not good. You have to have a balance between socialism and capitalism. You can't go completely towards socialism. You can't go completely towards capitalism. But loss of jobs is a big thing here. You can't do that, right? According to me. But US, it's allowed. Of course, in this case study, Michael Milken got jailed eventually, not for asset stripping. He got jailed for insider trading. So it was said that, finally he started talking to companies. They started giving him some information on which he started trading and things like that. He got jailed. Now, if you see Mahindra Satyam, it's a government directed thing that, and Satyam was saved because Mahindra stepped in, right? Tech Mahindra stepped in. You see, there's a joke about that, and I'm going to end with this. Anand Mahindra, it seems, asked Ramalinga Raju, why don't you get into a merger with us? And for some reason, Ramalinga Raju kept saying, no, 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 no. Anand Mahindra has to say, why not? I don't mind Tech Mahindra being a sub part of Satya, because you are much bigger than us and we don't mind. But Ramalinga Raju say no, no, no. It's only later that Anand Mahindra realized that Ramalinga Raju was hiding something in his balance sheet. So because the moment you say yes, due diligence starts. Due diligence starts means auditors will come open up your numbers. And you obviously, a third party comes in, right? ENY was anyway in his pocket. Somebody else comes in, his thing may get revealed. So Anand Mahindra has said that, I used to always feel, why is this guy saying no? Because I was ready to go under him and work with him. But he used to always say no. It's only later I realized he was hiding something. And of course, finally, he disclosed that, right? And then, we know what happened. Government stepped in and did what is known as directed mergers. So luckily for the employees and customers of Satyam, Tech Mahindra came in and stability is restored. My last point of reference here is, I personally think, there will be some questions for you all. If I am there, I would, in your placements, I would like to ask you some questions on Air India disinvestment. And I personally think you should read about Air India disinvestment because that's going to happen somewhere now. So please read about that. It's very simple. Government is getting out of the airline business. Never say it is good or bad in an interview because you don't know what is the political inclination of the guy who's taking an interview. Just say the pros and cons. And most likely the Tatas will take over is what the news is. You never know because Indigo also has got into a bad shape. For all you know, the government may not be able to sell it also in one piece. They'll have to break it up and sell. So read that case. I suspect anybody who is looking for an investment banking profile, this could be a hot topic for us to discuss, a current topic. Normally what I do when I take interviews for Deutsche, etc., is I ask current topics just to see, so that we also get something from the students. This could be a hot topic. My personal favorite, you could read about that. By ending, I would like to say one thing, Bete. It's a very, very, very fabled thing of M&A, but the harsh reality is if you can't execute well, this thing can be a failure. One good book I would recommend all of you all to read after your exams is Execution by Ram Charan. Execution by Ram Charan. Thank you very, very much. I thank all of you all who all wanted an extra class on M&A. Thank you, Bete. God bless each one of you all. Thank you, Shanti ma'am. God bless again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.